Hey guys, tonight we sink into the steamy, murky world of 14th century hygiene where bathwater swirls with rose petals, paranoia, and questionable choices. Picture this: you're shuffling across slimy cobblestones toward a flickering lantern, the stench of tanneries and open sewers clinging to your tunic like a second skin. Ahead, a bathhouse groans with laughter and splashing, but shadows coil in its corners like waiting serpents. Let's be real, you probably wouldn't survive this. Forget modern plagues. Here, a shave could nick an artery, medicinal steam might poison you, and even clean water is a luxury traded for ale. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Maybe you're soaking in a Tokyo tub right now or braving Icelandic midnight sun. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push open a creaking oak door, greeted by a wall of damp heat that curls your hair instantly. Welcome to Thermi Vulgaris, where bath attendants leer like highwaymen and patrons bob in shared tubs like overcooked dumplings. Candles gutter in the gloom, casting dancing shadows on walls stained with soot and suspicious mildew. Someone's singing off-key about lost love, another's arguing over dice. You pay 2 pennies a day's wages for a laborero, a man missing 3 fingers. His grin suggests they weren't lost to honest work. Mainstream fact? This is post-Roman Britain, where bathhouses cling to life like mold on cheese. Once, Grand Imperial Thermae boasted marble floors and heated pools. Now, you're lucky if the water's changed weekly. Your barefoot squelches on something unspeakable near the edge of the pool. You recoil, but not fast enough. Medieval floors are minefields of dropped leeches, spilled tonics, and worse. Quirky tidbit incoming: some bathhouses added ale or milk to the water, believing it softened skin. Others tossed in sulfur to purify souls. Tonight's brew reeks of lavender and rotting eggs. You glance at a grimy shelf of curatives: dried toads for rheumatism, mercury salves for rashes. One jar floats what looks like a pickled hedgehog. Historians still argue whether these potions killed more than they cured, or just made people smell like a demon's pantry. Dangers everywhere. See that wiry fellow lathering his beard? He's using a razor honed on a tombstone, a common practice believed to lend an edge against spirits. Rust speckles the blade. Infection's a coin flip. Nearby, a woman dunks her shrieking child into the muck. "Cleanse the devil out," she hisses. Superstition hangs thicker than steam. Many believe water opens skin pores to miasmas, those invisible plague carriers swimming in air. Church elders preach that baths invite lust. You spot a couple canoodling in a shadowed alcove, proving them right. Your own skin prickles. Is that sweat or terror? You slide into tepid water, gritting your teeth as it laps against grime you've accumulated for months. Ah, the clean feeling, a fleeting illusion. Around you, bathers scrub with sapo, a slimy paste of animal fat and beach ash. It reeks of rancid lard. Someone offers you a lice comb carved from bone. Decline politely. Shared combs spread more than gossip. Suddenly, a commotion erupts. A man collapses, foaming at the mouth. "Foul humors," cries an onlooker. The water poisoned him. Truth? He probably drowned after too much cheap wine. Attendants drag him out, his heels scraping wet stones. No one stops bathing. This is the hygiene tightrope. You crave cleanliness, but fear water's corrupting touch. Doctors warn that baths unbalance your bodily fluids: yellow bile, black bile, blood, phlegm. Steam melts the brain. They claim. Yet, you're here because stench follows you like a curse. Your tunic crawls with fleas, your scalp itches. Outside, streets run with filth. But inside these walls, peril wears a deceptively gentle face. That rose petal floating near your knee, it masks nothing. The bathmaster tops up the tub with a bucket from the river, the same river where butchers dump offal and tanners soak, hides in urine. Scholars debate whether medieval folks were truly filthy or just pragmatically grubby. Evidence leans toward both. You dunk your head, holding your breath as sludgy warmth envelops you. For a heartbeat, it's almost peaceful. Then, your foot brushes against something spongy and colda discarded leech, fat with blood. You vault out, gasping, time to go. As you dress, a boy offers a tonic of vinegar and crushed beetles for your pale complexion. You decline. Outside, moonlight glints on puddles that smell like death and damp wool. The bathhouse fades behind you, its steam ghosting over the rooftops. You've survived your first medieval scrub, but the night's young and filth never sleeps. You trudge away from the bathhouse's greasy warmth, the night air biting your damp skin like 1,000 icy needles. Cobblestones slope downward, and your worn shoe slips on something slick, probably not mud. As you steady yourself against a crumbling wall, your fingers trace grooves in the stone, the ghostly outline of an archway long buried under centuries of grime and neglect. This isn't just debris. You're leaning on the corpse of a Roman caldarium, its grandeur reduced to a peasant's backrest. Mainstream fact? Those grooves are remnants of hypocaust flues, part of an underfloor heating system so advanced, medieval engineers viewed it as sorcery. Close your eyes. For a heartbeat, the reek of sewage fades, replaced by the ghost of cedar oil and steam. The Romans didn't just bathe, they orchestrated wellness. Imagine vaulted ceilings dripping condensation onto mosaics of tritons and nymphs. Slaves stoked furnaces below marble floors, channeling heat through hollow tiles. Medieval London's bathhouses couldn't even keep rats out of their broth-like pools. You'd glide from frigidarium, cold plunge, to tepidarium, lukewarm lounge, to caldarium, scalding soak, scraping sweat and dirt off with a curved blade called a strigil. Quirky tidbit? Wealthy bathers had slaves collect their sweat scrapings in vials, believing it held medicinal power. Gladiator's essence fetched a fortune for treating baldness or impotence. Spoiler, it cured nothing but the buyer's dignity. But here's where history gets slippery. That wall you're shivering against? It's not just forgotten, it's feared. Locals whisper that Roman bathhouses were portals to hell. After all, pagans built them. Nakedness bred debauchery. And those clever drains? Obviously tunnels for demons. You kick a loose stone, revealing a shard of iridescent glass part of a window that once filtered sunlight into liquid gold. Now, it's just trash in a gutter. Historians still argue whether the Dark Ages lost Roman engineering knowledge or actively rejected it as sinful. Evidence? When a 12th century monk unearthed Roman plumbing diagrams, he burned them, calling the pipes veins of the Antichrist. You wander toward the river, the moonlight catching on something half sunk in the bank, a moss-crusted statue of Minerva, goddess of wisdom. Her stone eyes seem to judge your grimy fingernails. Romans would have bathed daily here. But you? You've been told water weakens your life force. Yet the contradiction stings. Their aqueducts marched across valleys like conquering armies. Your town's fresh well sits 10 paces downstream from the butcher's offal pile. You crouch to rinse your hands, then freeze. What if the river is poisoned? What if the Romans fell because they grew too soft from steam and scrubbing? A fish belly floats past, upside down. Probably not Minerva's doing. Let's gossip about the ancients. Ever seen a Roman bath token? Tiny bronze discs, traded for entry like arcade coins. Find one today, and it's a museum treasure. Back then, casual currency. You'd soak alongside senators and slaves, debating politics or pantomimes while masseurs pummeled knots from your shoulders. No fingerless attendants here, just trained unctors rubbing you down with silky oils. Medieval Europe inherited these spaces and turned them into flea markets. Saunas became tavern backrooms, plunge pools stored turnips. The engineering decayed faster than morality. Mainstream fact? London's sole surviving Roman bath complex sat buried under a 13th century brothel until the 1800s. Coincidence? Unlikely. Superstition festers. See those shadows near the riverbank? Farmers leave wilted garlands there each spring, offerings to water sprites blamed for flooded crops. Romans would have laughed. They knew floods came from blocked drains, not angry nymphs. Yet their brilliance withered, aqueducts collapsed, hypocausts filled with vermin. And when the Black Death comes knocking in a few decades, you'll blame miasmas, not the rats nesting in your abandoned tepidarium. Quirky twist? Some medieval midwives secretly used Roman drainage maps to find clean water. They'd be burned as witches if caught. Irony's a bitter bath brew. You sit on Minerva's cracked pedestal, shivering. Downstream, a woman beats a tunic against rocks, her breath fogging the air. She's not bathing, she's working. For her, cleanliness is labor, not luxury. Roman grandeur feels like a fairy tale. Yet traces linger, the stubborn curve of a road following an old aqueduct's path, cellar walls lined with suspiciously smooth brick. You stand, knees popping, and turn toward home. As you go, your heel grinds the glass shard deeper into the mud. Progress isn't linear. Sometimes it's circular, and the circle stinks. The church bell tolls matins as you approach the looming cathedral, its spires clawing at a bruised dawn sky. Your damp tunic chills against your skyna, visceral reminder of last night's ill-advised bath. A monk glides past, eyes averted from your clean state as if you'd rolled in heresy, which, according to Bishop Duran's latest sermon, you practically have. Bathing invites the devil through porous skin. He'd thundered yesterday. Mainstream fact? The 12th century Decretum Gratiani explicitly linked nudity with original sin, declaring bathhouses stews of immorality. You shiver, but not from cold. You slip into the back pew just as the homily begins. Recall Saint Agnes, the priest booms, spittle flying. She refused to bathe before her martyrdom, preserving her holy purity. Around you, congregants nod fervently. Their collective odor hangs thick as incenser sweat, unwashed wool, and the sweet rot scent of tooth decay. Quirky tidbit? Some zealots took this further, rubbing dirt into their skin as spiritual armor. The Order of the Unwashed boasted that maggots in their folds were mortifications pleasing to God. You discreetly scratch your arm, dislodging a flea. Holiness itches. The priest's gaze lands on you. Water softens the soul for Satan's entry, he declares, pointing a bony finger. Panic flares. Does he know? You recall the bathhouse attendant's smirk as he took your coins. Was that confession? Historians still argue whether clerics truly believed bathing caused damnation or simply hated the social mixing it enabled. After all, bathhouses were where gossips traded secrets, rebels plotted, and most dangerous men and women sometimes bathed together. Your mind drifts to that shadowed alcove last night. No, focus. Salvation first, sanitation later. Outside, you join penitents circling the cloister. A woman ahead of you rocks an infant while scrubbing a turnip with Sandboth-approved dry cleaning methods. Baptismal water's enough for the soul, she mutters, echoing St. Benedict's rule. You glance at the cathedral stoop. Holy water glistens green with algae. A fly drowns in it. Mainstream fact? Monasteries became epicenters of anti-bathing ideology. Cistercian monks limited full-body immersion to 3 times a year, Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost. Even then, they wore tunics for modesty. You itch under your collar 3 times? You haven't gone 3 weeks. But human nature rebels. Behind the apse, a furtive trade unfolds. A gardener slips a mace in a small clay jar. Rosewater from the abbess's own still, he whispers. 2 pence. The mason palms it greedily. Church elites preached asceticism but indulged in stealthy luxury. Quirky twist? Archaeologists found lead plumbing in the latrine of a 14th century bishop's palace while his sermons condemned baths as gateways to perdition. The debate rages. Was this hypocrisy or theological nuance? Perhaps grime was for the masses, while holy men required olfactory diplomacy. You pause before a fresco of Adam and Eve. Their fig leaves look suspiciously clean. Eve offers an apple, Adam scratches his ribs. Typical. Original sin's legacy taints everything, even wash basins. Sweat is your baptismal water. A street preacher yells nearby. You watch a butcher purify his hands by rubbing them with Sigenever water before hacking at a carcass. Flies swarm the blood. Theological justification? Saint Jerome declared dirtiness a shield against lust. Yet you notice the preacher's own robe is stained with what looks like wine and yesterday's supper. As dusk bleeds across the square, you spot a boy darting toward the river with a towel. A cleric follows, shaking a birch rod. Temptation, he screeches. The boy plunges in anyway. You linger near a market stall selling saintly relics, a crusty toe bone of Saint Roche, plague protector. The vendor winces when you lean close. Brother, your aura is strong today. You buy a beeswax purity seal instead. It melts instantly in your sweaty palm. The cathedral doors groan shut. Inside, monks chant vespers. Outside, the forbidden river glitters. Your skin crawls with the phantom feel of last night's murky water. Was it sin, or just sulfur and regret? Scholars note a paradox. The same churches that damned baths hosted holy wells where pilgrims immersed themselves for healing. Water's morality, it seems, depended on who blessed eye tanned, who profited. You turn homeward, stepping over a dead rat. Holiness smells like decay tonight. The cathedral's shadow still chills your back when a trumpet blast splits the air. You whirl to see crimson banners snapping against the sky royal livery. Gods shove peasants aside as a gilded litter sways past, curtains drawn tight. Make way for His Majesty's bathwater, a herald shouts. You're swept along in the jostling crowd toward the castle gates, your earlier piety forgotten like a dropped crumb. Mainstream fact? King Edward III's bathing ritual was less about cleanliness and more about power theater. Today's performance features 12 sweating porters hauling a cedar tub the size of a peasant's hut, sloshing with liquid that glints ruby in the weak sun. You duck under a stable arch as the procession halts. Servants scurry like ants, scattering rose petals that stick to muddy cobbles. Through a cracked door, you glimpse the inner courtyard. There he is, the king already shirtless and pink-faced, waving a dismissive hand at a bishop who dares quote Leviticus on nakedness. God made water, did he not? He booms. His attendants lower him into the tub, steam rising in phantom curls. Quirky tidbit? That's not just water, it's Gascon wine, shipped in barrels stamped with the royal seal. Cost? More than your village's annual harvest. The king believes its acidity invigorates the royal humors. You believe it smells like a drunkard's dream. Watch closely. This isn't self-care. It's a chess game. Two lords hover nearby, towels at the ready. Lord Percy's sleeves drip with marten furteau rich for a bath attendant. He leans close, whispering as the king's eyes drift shut. Lord Beaufort counters, offering a sponge floating in ambergris. Their rivalry steams hotter than the water. Historians still argue whether royal baths were covert council chambers or just narcissism with better props. Evidence? Henry V signed war decrees while soaking. Tonight, Edward grants Percy's nephew a tax exemption mid-scrub. Coincidence? Unlikely. A splash makes you jump. The king's fool tumbles into the tub fully clothed, bellowing, "Sire! I bring news from your pores they revolt against French grapes." Laughter erupts, but it's brittle. You spot the queen watching from an upper window, her face stone. Baths were marital battlefields. When Eleanor of Aquitaine soaked with rosemary, Henry II took mistresses. When Isabella of France bathed Edward in milk, she later deposed him. Water reflects more than skin. You inch closer, pressing against cold stone. The wine scent is dizzying. Attendants add pinches of saffron for vitality and crushed lapis lazuli because the king likes his bathwater regal blue. It curdles purple. Suddenly, a hand clamps your shoulder. A god glowers, spying on His Majesty's ablutions. Before you can plead, he drags you forward. The crowd gasps. The king's eyes snap open. Silence. Water drips from his beard like blood. "Another soul drawn to my curative waters?" he chuckles, swirling a hand in the murk. "Kneel." You sink into mud. Mainstream fact? Commoners were occasionally summoned to witness royal baths proof of the monarch's accessibility. Quirky reality? It was pure PR. He extends a pruned finger. Taste. You recoil. The water full, a ladle's thrust at you. You sip. It's vinegar sour, thick with sediment. The very vintage that felled Charles of Valois. Edward boasts. You gag politely. Behind him, intrigue unfolds. A page slips a folded parchment to Lord Beaufort under a towel. The Queen vanishes from her window. Percy scowls. Royal baths were rumor mills. Did you know Richard II's downfall began with a bathhouse plot? Lords hid behind screens to overhear his confidences while he soaked. Tonight's drama simmers beneath grapeskins and pretense. The god shoves you back as trumpets blare again. The bath concludes, announces a herald. Attendants lift the king dripping, majestic, trailing wine like a snail's shimmer onto a waiting bearskin. As they pat him dry with linen from Flanders, you notice his feet. Cracked, yellow-nailed, and calloused. Mortal flesh beneath the spectacle. You're ejected through the postern gate as servants tip the tub. Purple rivulets snake toward the gutter. A beggar scrambles to catch drips in his hat, drinking deeply. Royal health, he slurs. You turn away, the king's laughter echoing off the walls. Power doesn't cleanse. It just leaves stains. The wine-stained cobblestones fade behind you as a new stench coils through the alleyway sweetly rotten, clinging to the back of your throat like spoiled honey. It's the smell of panic. A woman runs past, her shawl pressed to her face, eyes wide as wagon wheels. The pestilence, she gasps. They say it rides the steam. You freeze! Bathhouses! The king's indulgence suddenly feels like a death warrant. Mainstream fact, by 1349, as the Black Death devoured Europe, cities like London ordered all bathhouses shuttered. Doctors declared warm water opened pores to pestilential air, letting death seep into the blood. You glance toward the river where bathhouse chimneys stood yesterday. Tonight, only cold, still darkness. You push through a crowd gathering around a town crier. His face is pale beneath a hood slick with vinegar. Hear ye, all bathing ceased by order of the crown. Steam is Satan's breath. He hammers a notice to the charred door of the Slippery Eel Tavern, Baths. Nails screech like dying cats. Quirky tidbit? Some physicians recommended never washing hands or face only rubbing them with strong herbs like rue or wormwood. One plague tract suggested wearing a dead toad around the neck to absorb bad vapors. You instinctively touch your throat. Nothing but sweat and grime. The bathhouse district lies corpse quiet now. Boards crisscross familiar doorways. At the Rose, Thistle, you peer through a splintered gap. Inside, copper tubs lie overturned like turtle shells. A forgotten strigil glints in a shaft of moonlight, half buried in rushes reeking of mildew and old rose oil. A rat scuttles over a sodden towel. Historians still argue whether bath closures slowed the plague or accelerated filth-fueled epidemics. Evidence? Paris saw deaths triple in districts near shuttered bathhouses where waste festered unchecked. But fear outran facts. Fear always does. A scream pierces the night. Down by the quay, men in sinister beaked masks drag a sobbing woman from her home. She bathed yesterday, accuses a neighbor, clutching a screaming child. Saw her fetch river water. The plague doctors, looking like demented crows, shove her toward a pest house cart. Their beaks bulge with incense-soaked sponges meant to filter corruption. It's theater, deadly theater. You shrink back, heart hammering. Your own skin remembers last night's soak. Could water really be the traitor? Desperate logic spreads. At the market square, a friar preaches beside a crackling bonfire of linens and wash basins. Burn the devil's tools, he shrieks. A blacksmith hurls his wife's copper-hip bath into the flames. It melts into a grotesque puddle, shimmering like hell's own mirror. Mainstream fact? The Regimen Sanitatis Salernitanum, Europe's premier medical text, flipped overnight. Bathing, only for the robust or reckless. You watch a baker scrub his arms with sand until they bleed. Dry purity, he chants. Flies swarm his raw flesh. But humans are stubborn creatures. Behind the charred skeleton of the steam knight, a flicker of defiance glows. You follow a sliver of lamplight to a cellar grate. Below, muffled splashing. A whispered password, St. Agnes kneecap, grants entry. Inside, 3 men huddle in a single wooden tub barely larger than a bread trough. Water slops onto a dirt floor. A quick dip, mutters a wool merchant, his skin gray with fatigue. The itch, it was driving me mad. The air hangs thick with the scent of feverfew and desperation. Quirky survival tactic? Some underground bathers floated a thin layer of oil on the water, believing it sealed pores against miasma. It mostly just trapped body heat and stank. Suddenly, fists pound on the street-level door. Sanitation watch. The bathers scramble. One man slips, cracking his head on the tub's edge. Blood blooms in the water like a crimson flower. The wool merchant drags him into a shadowed alcove as the grate crashes open. A masked face glares down, holding a torch that reeks of pitch and sulfur. Filthmongers, the accusation echoes. You press flat against a damp wall, praying the shadows swallow you. They find only the tub. The lead watchman plunges his torch into the water. Hissing steam fills the cellar. Let this be a lesson. Steam kills, he roars before vanishing. The silence that follows is thick with terror and the stink of extinguished fire. The wounded man groans. The water is now a lukewarm soup of blood, ash, and oil. We'll be jailed or worse, whimpers the third bather, wringing his hands. The wool merchant stares at the foul tub, then at his own trembling, grimy fingers. Was it worth it? He whispers. No one answers. Outside, the death cart rumbles past, its bell clanking. Bring out your dead. You escape into the alley, gulping night air that tastes of smoke and decay. A new notice flutters on a post. BY order. All citizens to avoid washing linens in rivers. Stagnant water breeds pestilence. Irony W. Wraps around you like a shroud. Avoid water. Avoid cleanliness. Avoid life. Ahead, the cathedral spire stabs the sky. You think of the king's wine bath, the bishop's condemnations, the crackling bonfire of basins. Fear has turned liquid to poison. A drunk stumbles from a tavern, pissing openly against the wall of the boarded-up steam knight. Safe as milk, he slurs. You walk faster. The plague might kill you, but stupidity? That's the plague's shadow still hunches over the city like a vulture when a new odor assaults you thick, greasy, and clinging to the back of your throat like rancid pudding. You follow it down a reeking alley, away from boarded bathhouses and plague notices, until you find its source. A sagging workshop tucked between a tannery and a slaughter yard. No sign hangs here, only a crude drawing of a bubbling cauldron scratched into the door. Soap. The word itself feels illicit now. Mainstream fact? Medieval soap making combined animal fats and wood ash into a slimy paste called sapo, often produced illegally near city walls due to its eye-watering stench. You push inside, greeted by a wall of heat that reeks of burnt hair and despair. 3 figures move like ghosts in the steam. One stokes a roaring fire beneath a blackened cauldron. Another stirs its contents with a pole longer than a man is tall. The third a woman with forearms like knotted rope scoops glistening tallow from a barrel. Lamb fat today, she grunts, dumping the lumpy white mass into the brew. Renderin makes it sweet. You gag. Sweet isn't the word. The air tastes like a butcher's floor on a hot day. Quirky tidbit, some soap boilers swore by adding crushed strawberries to perfume the batch, but the result resembled pink sludge that smelled like rotting fruit and lard. Tonight's brew steams ominously, swirling with gray curdles. Keep stirring, Tom, the woman barks. Tom, a gaunt man sweating through his tunic, obeys. Ain't the plague gonna get us in this stink? He mutters. Nah, laughs the fire, tender, poking the flames. The fumes kill the devil himself. They're outlaws. City decrees ban soap making within gates since the Great Stink of 1315, when runoff from a vat explosion poisoned half a street's well water. Historians still argue whether medieval soap cleaned anything or just smeared fat and ash into a scented grime mask. Judging by the brown streaks crusting the walls here, you lean toward the latter. The process unfolds like a grotesque cookery show. First, they leach lye from beechwood ash by pouring water through barrels, catching the caustic drip in clay pots. Lye bites like a dragon, warns the woman Alara, showing scarred palms. Next, rendered fat simmers for hours until it liquefies into a greasy broth. Finally, the magic or tragedy, slowly adding lye to fat while stirring endlessly. Too fast and it seizes up like a sinner's heart, Tom explains, his pole scraping the cauldron's bottom. The mixture thickens, bubbling like a swamp. Alara tosses in a handful of dried lavender. It vanishes instantly, overwhelmed. Suddenly, the brew hisses and foams violently. Whoa there, girl! Ilara dumps in a bucket of salt. The foam subsides, leaving a glossy pudding-like goo. Salt tames the beast, she nods. Soap making was alchemy gone wrong. Recipes varied wildly. Some used olive oil, imported at ruinous cost. Others beef suet or even fish oil for the desperately poor. Quirky version? London's piss soap used stale urine for its ammonia, creating lumps that reeked of desperation in chamber pots. You edge away from a barrel marked with a suspicious yellow stain. Tom dips a wooden paddle into the vat, pulling up a glistening glob. Green soap, he announces proudly. It oozes like snot, tinted by copper salts leaching from the cauldron. Good for scrofula. Mainstream fact? Castile soap, from Spain, made with pure olive oil, was a luxury item traded like spice. What you see here is its grotesque cousin, cheap, harsh, and likely to leave burns. Alara slaps a dollop onto your palm. Test it. The sludge is warm, gritty, with ash particles, and smells like a wet dog rolled in herbs. You rub it between your fingers. It stings. Feel that bite? She grins. That's cleanliness. Danger lurks everywhere. Lye fumes scorch your lungs with each breath. Stray droplets eat holes in Tom's leather apron. Lost me eyebrows last Michaelmas, he chuckles, pointing to shiny pink skin above his eyes. The fire crackles, threatening to ignite greasy rags piled nearby. And outside, the risk is greater. Soap-making stench drew the scent watch officials paid to sniff out illegal workshops. Penalties range from fines to public dunking in the offender's own vile brew. You eye the door nervously. Why risk it, you ask. Alara's smile fades. She lifts a corner of her skirt, revealing a child's leg mottled with angry red bites. Lice, she spits. Bathhouses closed. Vinegar costs a fortune. This? She gestures at the vat. This keeps my boy from scratching himself raw. Her pragmatism stings. While nobles rub themselves with rosewater-scented pomanders, the poor fought parasites with caustic sludge. Scholars debate whether soap improved hygiene or just added new misery's chemical burns, poisoned wells, and the ever-present threat of discovery. A sudden pounding shakes the door. Sanitation watch! Open in the name of the mayor. Panic erupts. Tom dumps a sack of ash onto the fire, plunging the room into choking darkness. Ilara shoves a lump of cooling soap into your hands. Go! Back window! You scramble over sacks of rancid fat as the door splinters. Through the greasy pane, you see two men in city livery holding vinegar-soaked cloths to their noses. One pokes a halberd into the dying embers. Filthy trade, he gags. You drop into a muddy yard behind the workshop, the stolen soap squelching in your grip. From inside, a muffled argument. Just tallow rendering for candles, sir. Smells like Satan's laundry day. You slip away, the soap's lye bite still stinging your palm. Ahead, a beggar scratches furiously at his matted hair. On impulse, you hand him the lump. He sniffs it, shrugs, and rubs it vigorously into his scalp. A moment later, he howls, clawing at his burning skin. Soap, medieval Europe's double-edged sword, Cleanliness next to godliness, more like next to madness. The alley dumps you onto a crowded street. A hawker sells lice-bane combs blessed by Saint Fiacre beside a barber's stall advertising delousing leeches. You glance at your raw, soap-burned fingers. Tomorrow's problem. Tonight, the memory of that cauldron's rancid steam follows you like a curse. The soap's lye burn still smarts on your palm as a new itch awakens this time, crawling across your scalp like tiny, determined invaders. You scratch furiously, your nails catching in greasy tangles. Nearby, the barber's stall beckons with a crudely painted sign, John Barber, surgeon, delusing leeches. No refunds for screaming, mainstream fact. Medieval head lice, P. pediculus humanus capitis, infested nearly 90% of the population, thriving in woolen hoods and unwashed hair. You duck under the stall's awning, where a beefy man in a blood-spattered apron sharpens a knife on a whetstone. Got the crawlers, eh? He grins, revealing a gap where his front tooth should be. Sit. We'll evict him. You perch on a wobbly stool as John yanks your head back. His fingers probe your scalp like a badger digging for worms. Aye, lively colony, he announces cheerfully. See that? He points to a rust-flecked metal comb dangling overhead. Saint Fiacre's own design teeth closer than a miser's purse. Quirky tidbit? Some delousers soaked combs in holy water or urine, believing ammonia killed nits faster. John spits on his instead. It streaks brown. Extra grip? He winks. The treatment begins with a vinegar drench. John upends a jug over your head. Sour liquid floods your eyes, burns your nostrils, and drips down your neck like icy sweat. Vinegar shrivels the buggers, he declares, scrubbing your scalp with a horsehair brush until fire blooms across your skin. You taste pickled despair. Around you, the market bustles. A fishmonger guts eels, their silver entrails splattering near your foot. A cobbler hammers nails into leather. No one spares you a glance. Scalp torture is background noise here. Now for the real cure, John whispers conspiratorially. From under the counter, he produces a clay jar sealed with wax. Inside, a shimmering silver paste. Mercury unguent, Arab recipe. He gloops a fingerful onto your crown. It's cold as grave dirt. Mainstream horror? Mercury was widely used for lice and syphilis, causing tremors, madness, and rotting jaws. John massages it into your burning scalp. Stings a bit, he admits as your vision blurs. Bit is an understatement. Fireants would be gentler. Scholars still argue whether lice or their cures killed more people. Evidence? Digs in London's Spitalfields found skulls with mercury levels 500 times modern safety limits nestled beside nit combs. John scrapes your scalp with his comb now, dragging it through knotted hair. Tink, 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 tink. Lice carcasses rain onto your lap like gruesome dandruff. Plump ones. He chuckles, crushing one between thumbnails. Been feastin' well. A customer sidles up a merchant clutching a fur hat crawling with movement. The usual, John? Aye, Bert. Bert sighs, handing over the hat. John tosses it into a cauldron of boiling water bubbling over a brazier. The hat writhes. Kills 'em quick. John nods. Bert leans closer to you. Lost 3 hats this month. Wife says I attract 'em like a dung heap. He scratches his beard, dislodging a fleeing louse. John skewers it mid-air with his comb. Gotcha. Your scalp pulses under the mercury. Visions dance at the edge of your sight, double-headed lice waltzing, Saint Fiacre juggling knit eggs. John squints. You're drooling. You touch your chin. Silver spittle strings down. Quirky alternative? Wealthy ladies doused hair in oil of vitriol, sulfuric acid, or slept with badger grease smeared on their heads believing the animal's odor repelled pests. One countess wore a live ferret as a hat. It bit her ear off. Suddenly, a commotion erupts. A woman storms the stall, dragging a wailing child. You sold me lice powder. It made him swell up like a toad. She slams a pouch on the counter. It leaks pink dust. John pokes it. Ah, Persian delight. Guaranteed to. Guaranteed. What? His eyes are sealed shut. The boy's face is a bloated, weeping mask. John shrugs. Must have been sensitive. Try badger grease next time. Historians note that delousing powders often contained crushed beetles, lead, or in this case irritant rose madder dye. You seize the distraction to flee, staggering into an alley. Your scalp feels flayed. Mercury drips into your eyes. At a horse trough, you plunge your head into murky water, scrubbing frantically. A stable boy laughs. New baptism? You emerge gasping, hair plastered with algae. The itch is gone, or just numbed by poison. You finger comb your hair. A single dead louse floats in the trough. Victory? Pyrrhic at best. Back on the street, you pass an apothecary. In the window, glass vials of lice-bane tincture beside mummified hands and unicorn horns. Inside, a clerk waves a censer, filling the shop with cloying incense. Keeps pests away, he calls. You hurry on. The smell of vinegar and mercury clings to you like a shroud. Ahead, a knight squire polishes a helmet. His master's hairpiece a sweaty, lice-ridden Wigris on a bench. The squire scratches absently, then buffs the helmet. The cycle continues. As dusk falls, you spot John packing up his stool. He tosses the remains of Bert's boiled hat to a stray dog. It sniffs, then trots away, tail low. Fussy mutt, John mutters. He pockets his mercury jar and vinegar jug, whistling. Another scalp scoured, another coin earned. You touch your throbbing head. Scholars debate whether medieval humans coexisted with parasites or waged constant futile war. Tonight, the lice feel like they're regrouping, and mercury's metallic tang still haunts your tongue. You find a quiet church wall to lean against. A stray cat rubs against your leg, purring. Its fur looks suspiciously matted. You scratch behind its ears. Something tiny and agile leaps onto your wrist. The war is eternal. Some battles, it seems, you can't comb away. The flea's bite still burns on your wrist as thunder rumbles overhead, a deep, gut-shaking growl that seems to vibrate through the cathedral stones. Rain slashes down icy needles against your skin. You duck into the nearest doorway, greeted by a wall of wet wool and wood smoke. A sign creaks above. The Stewed Night, Medicinal Baths. Not steam for cleanliness, mind you. Steam as medicine. Mainstream fact? Medieval stews were herbal steam baths prescribed by physicians to rebalance Galen's four humors blood: phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. Your flea bite? Clearly an excess of melancholic black bile. Or so claims the hairy-chested attendant blocking your way. 2 pence for melancholics, he grunts, eyeing your flea welt. 3 if you got the pox. You pay, shedding your sodden cloak as he ushers you into a low-ceilinged hellscape. Heat slams into you like a physical blow. Dozens of bodies huddle on wooden benches, naked and glistening in the gloom. The air swims with steam so thick, faces blur into pink smudges. Your lungs seize. It smells like a forest floor rotting in a tea kettle pine needles, damp earth, and something unsettlingly sweet. Quirky tidbit? Some stews tossed live vipers into the steam, believing their venom countered internal poisons. You scan the fog nervously. No snakes. Yet, over there, melancholic. The attendant shoves you toward a crackling furnace crowned with glowing river stones. A withered crone ladles water over them. Hiss. A scalding cloud engulfs you. Around you, coughs echo like dying seals. Breathe deep, wheezes a man beside you, his chest rattling like a bag of pebbles. Cured my ague last winter. His skin hangs in gray folds, trembling with every breath. Turad seems optimistic. You perch on a splintered bench as the crone approaches with a bucket. Choose your cure, she croaks. Inside float murky sachets. One reeks of pennyroyal, for barren wives, another of valerian, night terrors, a third of something fecal and fungal. What's that one? You ask, pointing to a slimy green lump. Frog spawn and moss, for paralysis. She slaps the dripping mess onto your flea bite. It squelches, warm and alive, feeling. Mainstream medicine? Steaming with herbs like chamomile or sage was legitimately prescribed for cold ailments like joint pain. Frog's pawn? Less so. The heat intensifies. Sweat rivers down your spine. A man across the room stands abruptly, swaying. I feel it. The humor's shifting, he shouts, then crumples face first onto the wet floor. No one moves. Two attendants drag him out by his ankles, his head bouncing over the threshold. Humor's drained, nods the crone sagely. He'll thank us tomorrow. Unlikely. Historians still argue whether steam therapy killed patients faster than their diseases or merely provided placebo comfort in an age of brutal remedies. Evidence? Digs near stews reveal bones scarred by arthritis and lungs blackened by soot inhalation. Time warps in the steam. Minutes? Hours? Your frog spawn poultice slides off, plopping onto the bench. The flea bite now throbs with a vengeance, ringed by angry red skin. Ah, bad humor's rising, cackles the crone, jabbing a bony finger. Needs stronger cure. Before you protest, she slathers your arm with a paste that smells like rancid butter and grave dirt. Badger grease and grave mold drains the darkness. It oozes, warm and gritty. Quirky logic, some physicians believed grave mold, earth of sepulchres, absorbed excess humors since it flourished near corpses. You pray, it's just mud. Suddenly, a commotion erupts near the furnace. A young man thrashes, clawing at his throat. Demons! In the steam! He gurgles. Attendants wrestle him down. Phlegm to vapors transformation, diagnoses a self-proclaimed steam sage stroking his beard. Fetch the fox lungs. A jar appears holding shriveled brown lobes. They're held near the man's face to draw out congested spirits. He vomits spectacularly. See? Expulsion, declares the sage. The stew's patrons nod, impressed. You edge away, badger grease dripping. A drip lands on the furnace stones. Pop! Hiss! A miniature explosion of steam scalds your calf. You yelp. Ha! Yellow bile reacting, laughs your wheezing benchmate. Shows you're alive. He offers you a shared ladle of tepid water floating with unidentified flecks. Drink. Replenishes the vital steam. You decline. Vital steam feels like suffocation. The air tastes metallic, thick with sweat and decay. A new figure enters a wealthy merchant draped in towels, his belly glistening like risen dough. Attendants rush to him, scattering commoners. My usual, he booms. They roll out a private tub, filling it not with steam, but milk and rose petals. Lacto-hydrotherapy, he informs the room smugly, calms choleric humors. You watch enviously as he sinks into the opalescent bath. The crone spits into the furnace. Hiss. Pride's a black bile maker, she mutters. Your arm burns under the grave mold. Desperate, you scrape it off with a wood shard. The skin beneath is raw, welted. The original flea bite is now a throbbing purple star. Infection, gasps a woman beside you. Needs fire cupping. She brandishes a horn cup and candle. Suck out the pestilent air. You bolt, stumbling over slick benches toward the exit. Cold rain slaps your face as you burst into the alley. The relief is instant, brutal. You plunge your arm into a rain barrel, scrubbing furiously. The water clouds with grave mold and badger grease. Behind you, the stew's door hangs open, belching steam into the downpour like a dying dragon. A final snippet of conversation drifts out. Added weasel skulls to the furnace stones, truly invigorating. You lean against the sooty wall, shivering. The flea bite pulses, angry and hot. Down the lane, a lantern swings outside a barber surgeon's shop. His sin promises, bloodletting, all humors balanced. The steam sage's voice echoes in your memory. All cures are experiments on the living. You glance at your arm, then at the barber's flickering light. The experiment continues. The barber surgeon's bloodletting sign blurs as rain sheets down, stinging your flea-bitten arm. You stumble into a tavern's smoky embrace, the Tipsy Saracen, where a fire crackles and a lute whines. Amidst the reek of wet dog and cheap ale, a traveler's voice rises, sharp with wonder. Floors warmer than a lover's sigh, pipes singing like birds. He slams his tankard, sloshing foam. The Moors, lads! They bathe like kings in paradise. You freeze? Bathing in this plague terror age? The room falls silent. Mainstream fact? Islamic hammams weren't just baths, they were hydraulic marvels with underfloor heating, aqueduct-fed pools, and strict hygiene codes while Europe wallowed in filth phobia. The traveler leans in, eyes gleaming. Seen it in Granada. Steam so clean, you could drink it. Doubt curdles your thoughts. You've survived vinegar scalds and mercury salves. Clean steam. But the itch on your scalp, the throbbing bite on your wrist, they whisper, try. Days later, you find yourself shuffling across sun-baked cobbles in a Moorish quarter, guided by the scent of citrus and wet clay. Before you, an arched doorway, intricate as lace. Above it, calligraphy swirls like captured music. Gamam al-salam, peace. You pay a copper dirham to an attendant robed in spotless linen. He hands you a woven modesty wrap. No leering, no missing fingers. Just a nod toward inner silence. You step inside and gasp. Cool marble kisses your bare feet. Gentle light filters through star-shaped roof vents, dappling walls adorned with geometric vines. Distantly, water trickles a soothing murmur, not a plague river's gurgle. The air, light, herb-scented. No eye-watering lie or corpse breath miasma. You glide through arched passages, warmth rising gently through the floor. Hypocausts, but refined. Coal furnaces heat water pipes snaking under polished tiles, radiating even heat without smoke or soot. Quirky genius? Some hammams used elephant trunk-shaped bronze spouts to aerate fountain jets, creating rain-like showers. Water should dance? A Persian engineer once wrote, not lie stagnant like regret. A curtain of steam pots. The warm room unfolds, domed and pillared like a miniature palace. Men lounge on heated slabs, chatting softly as attendants pour warm water over them with copper pitchers. No frantic scrubbing, no shrieking children. Just ritualized calm. Salem, murmurs an old man beside you, his skin like polished teak. He gestures to the bucket at your feet. Pour slowly. Let the heat unwind your knots. You mimic him, gasping as water cascades over your shoulders. It's clean, truly clean. No wine dregs, no sulfur. Just liquid clarity. Mainstream contrast? While London's wells festered beside cesspits, Islamic cities like Cordoba had sewage systems, public fountains, and hammam water filtered through sand and charcoal. Physicians like Al-Razi prescribe bathing for everything from melancholy to excess phlegm. No frog spawn required. An attendant approaches with a clay pot. Scrub, inside, a paste of olive oil and crushed lentils, gasol. It smells of earth and almonds. He kneads it into your back, exfoliating months of grime and medieval cures. Dead skin rolls away like old parchment. Your flea bite ceases throbbing. Miracle? Or just absence of filth? The heat deepens as you move to the hot room. Here, steam coils like benevolent ghosts. Attendants place mint leaves on heated stones, releasing bursts of crisp fragrance. Opens the lungs, says your neighbor, inhaling deeply. He's a silk merchant from Damascus. Back home, we close deals in hammams. Clean bodies, clean contracts. You laugh then realize he's serious. Historians still argue whether Europe's rejection of bathing stemmed from genuine piety or fear of Islamic cultural superiority. Evidence? Crusaders returning from the East raved about hammams and were promptly accused of heresy. Quid ritual? In some hammams, bathers wore copper amulets filled with salt, believing it amplified steam's purifying ions. You decline one offered by an eager youth. Suit yourself, he shrugs, but salt draws out envy as well as sweat. Around you, the rhythm continues. The hiss of steam, the slap of wet marble, low murmurs in Arabic, Persian, Spanish. A poet recites verses near a fountain. His words echo off the dome, blending with water song. No plague terror here, no church fulminations, just peace. An attendant guides you to a side alcove for massage. Cedar oil warms over a tiny brazier. His hands work your shoulder-sneaking knots forged by fear-laden winters and mercury poisoning. You carry cold countries in your muscles, he observes. As the oil sinks in, you drift. Imagine London with aqueducts, bathhouses without guilt. Scholars debate whether medieval Islamic hygiene prolonged lifespans or simply made existence bearable. You glance at your arm. The flea bite is a fading pink memory. Evidence leans toward both. Reality crashes back in the cooling room. You sip mint tea from a porcelain cup, watching bathers redress in clean robes. No rush, no lurking danger. A merchant offers you a date stuffed with almond. From my orchard, he smiles. Sweetness explodes on your tongue. For a heartbeat, you're not an exile, in grime you're human. Stepping outside is violence. The stench of the Christian quarter hits like a fist. Open gutters, unwashed bodies, the acid tang of fear. A priest glares at your damp hair and relaxed posture. Dabbled in heathen comforts? He accuses. You say nothing. How to explain marble serenity to a world built on dung heaps? Ahead, a boarded-up bathhouse creaks in the wind. Thermae vulgaris. Its sign hangs crooked, a skeletal hand pointing nowhere. You find a rain barrel to splash your face. The water is greasy, flecked with refuse. It tastes of iron and despair. The hammam's cedar scent still clings to your skyna haunting. Impossible perfume. That night, scrubbing mud from your tunic with sand, you hear the traveler's voice in your mind. They bathe like kings in paradise. You crush a flea between thumbnails. Paradise, it seems, is geography, and you're marooned far from its shores. The ghost of cedar oil still clings to your skin as you trudge up the castle hill, a cruel joke when the reality before you reeks of whetstone, pigeon droppings, and the vinegary tang of unwashed bodies packed too close. You're here to deliver woolens to the castle laundress, but the scene that greets you in the bailey stops you cold. 24 soldiers stripped to the waist, their tunics spread on the flagstones like fallen birds. They're not washing them. They're rubbing them violently with coarse sand and crushed chalk, clouds of grit stinging your eyes. Water's forbidden till Lent, barks a sergeant, his own tunic gray with abrasion dust. Mainstream fact? During sieges or freezing winters, castles banned water laundering entirely, fearing wells would drain or attackers would poison them. Cleanliness became an exercise in dry despair. You find the laundress Gerda in a vaulted undercroft lit by a single slit window. Her workspace reeks of lanolin and dust. No tubs, no boilers. Just heaps of sand, bundles of dried teasel heads, and a battered wooden frame strung with gut. Scrubbing frame, she grunts, slamming a noble's embroidered surcoat onto it. Stretch, beat, pray. She attacks the fabric with a spiked teasel poda thistle, like plantrasping it over stained armpits. Critch, scritch, critch. The sound sets your teeth on edge. Lifts the greasy devils, she explains. Quirky alternative? Some used stale bread dough as a sponge, rolling it over cloth to absorb sweat and grime. Tastes awful after, admits a page boy wrinkling his nose. But Lord says it saves wine-stained velvets. You pick up a lump of chalky fuller's earth. It crumbles like ancient cheese in your palm. Gerda nods. Rub it into stains. Let it feast. You watch a scullery maid grind it into a gravy-splattered tablecloth. The spot fades, but the fabric grows thin as a beggar's patience. Rot the cloth to save the look, sighs Gerda. Nobility's motto. Above in the solar, ladies flutter in visibly clean gowns that smell faintly of dust and decay. A countess sneezes, powdering the air with chalk from her sleeves. The real nightmare unfolds in the knight's quarters. Sir Gareth stands rigid as his squire attacks, his padded gambesona, quilted tunic, worn under armor with a wooden paddle. Dwack! Dwack! Dust motes explode with each blow. Knocks the lice out, the squire pants. Sir Gareth's face is rigid. Faster, boy! I rode through a midden yesterday. Mainstream horror? Gambesons were rarely washed. Sweat, blood, and mold fermented between layers until they stood upright on their own. Quirky stopgap? Knights stuffed armor joints with meadowsweet or lavender to mask the reek. Smells like a battlefield in bloom, chuckles Sir Gareth, until the herbs rotted. Goethe hands you a bristle brush and a sack of fine river sand. Your turn. You stare at the heap of servants, tunics stiff with sweat, grease, and courrier stains. Water, wood. Water's for drinking and dying, she snaps. Scrub. You kneel, grinding sand into rough wool. The friction heats your palms. The dust coats your tongue. It's like erasing mistakes with a rock. Historians still argue whether dry cleaning spread plague fleas by redistributing them or suffocated them in dust. Evidence? Mass graves show servants with higher flea-borne disease rates than nobles who wore perfumed furs. A commotion erupts near the well. A kitchen boy is caught rinsing a dish rag. The guard dunks his head into the water bucket. "Waste is treason!" he roars. The boy emerges spluttering, the rag confiscated. "Burn it," orders the castellan. As it blackens over a brazier, the stench of singed wool and guilt fills the yard. Water is life here guarded like gold. You glance at the sky. Heavy clouds promise snow. Soon, even the well will freeze. Gerda shows you her prized tool, a dry washing ball of compressed clay, rose petals, and ground oyster shells. Roll it over silk, gentle-like. You try it on a lady's kerchief. A greasy fingerprint fades, replaced by a powdery sheen. Passes for clean in candlelight. She winks. But in daylight? The silk looks bruised, the fibers frayed. Scholars debate whether constant dry cleaning destroyed more textiles than the 100 Years' War. As dusk bleeds into the bailey, you witness desperation. A stable hand scrubs his tunic with snow, scooped from the battlements. "Melts the filth," he insists, rubbing vigorously. The snow turns gray, then black. His knuckles bleed. Nearby, a young mother spits on her infant's soiled swaddling cloth, rubbing it with ashes. "Better than nothing," she murmurs. The baby wails, its skin red and raw. You retreat to the undercroft as snow begins to fall. Gerda is pounding a tapestry with sand-filled socks. Thud. Thud. "Visitors admire this next week," she grunts. "Won't know we beat a year's dinners out of it." Up close. The hunting scene is frayed. Hercules' face blurred by abrasion. History rewritten by G. Grit. Later, you don your own cleaned tunic. It scratches like a sack of beetles. Dust puffs from the seams with every step. In the great hall, feasting begins. Roast boar drips onto rushes. Wine flows. A minstrel sings of chivalry. You scratch your chest, feeling the grit grind into your skin. The Lord raises a goblet. "To purity, may we be worthy of heaven's gaze." Around him, tapestries billow dust with each draught. Candles flicker on tables smeared with chalk residue. You slip outside. Snow silences the world. Leaning against the freezing curtain wall, you scoop a handful of white powder. It melts clean on your tongue. For a heartbeat, you're back in the Hammam's rain-like shower. Then the wind shifts, carrying the Bailey's odors, scorched wool, unwashed bodies, and Sir Gareth's meadowsweet stuffed gambeson, now reeking of rot and vain hope. Dry cleanliness is an illusion, like polishing a tombstone. The grime remains, you just spread it thinner. Moonlight bleeds through the Abbey's high, narrow windows, painting frosty stripes on the flagstones as you creep down the cloister walk. Silence hangs thick as wool broken only by distant snores from the dormitory and the drip, 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 drip of a leaking gargoyle outside. You clutch a stolen scrap of lye soap, hard as a river stone and smelling faintly of wood ash and guilt. Ahead, the night door to the outer yard. Freedom or frostbite. Mainstream fact: Benedictine rule restricted full-body washing to Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost, if the abbot permitted. Even then, monks wore tunics. Bare skin breeds sin, Prior Anselm thundered at chapter. You shiver, remembering his roomy eyes scanning the ranks for signs of self-indulgence. The oak door groans like a damned soul as you ease it open. Icy wind slaps your face. Across the frozen garden, the river glitters under the Moona ribbon of black ice and silver promise. You pad across frosted cabbages, your breath pluming like prayer smoke. Quirky tidbit? Some monks secretly washed using snowballs in winter, claiming they were collecting mana. You tried it last week. The snowball dissolved into mud halfway down your back. The riverbank is slick with frozen rushes. You strip quickly, your tunic and scapular folded on a rock. Nakedness feels alien, almost blasphemous. The air by Destiny knives pricking every inch of skin. You break the river's thin ice edge with a stick. Black water swirls, hungry and cold. Just a quick plunge, you wade in. Agony. The cold isn't water. It's 1,000 frozen needles driving into your bones. You gasp, teeth chattering like dice in a cup. This isn't cleansing its penance without the absolution. Still, you scrub the lye soap over your arms, chest, legs. It rasps like sandpaper, raising pink welts on skin gray with months of grime and incense ash. Dirt rolls away in dark curls. Beneath, the raw, shivering animal you'd forgotten. A twig snaps. You freeze, soap slipping from numb fingers. Prior Anselm, heart pounding, you sink chin deep into the ink-black water. Shadows move near the abbey wall, not the prior, but Brother Cedric, the ancient gardener. He limps toward the compost heap, dragging a sack of kitchen scraps. Relief floods, youth and vanishes. He stops, sniffs the air. The lie, he turns slowly, milky eyes scanning the riverbank. You hold your breath. He sees you. For a long moment, he stares. Then, deliberately, he turns his back, dumping carrot tops onto the steaming heap. He doesn't look again. As he shuffles away, he pauses, bends, and scrapes something from a mossy stone, a handful of damp, dark earth. He rubs it vigorously over his own hands and face before vanishing into the night. Quirky survival? Holy dirt soil from sacred sites was a sanctioned dry wash for monks caught between piety and putrescence. Historians still argue whether abbots secretly knew about these icy ablutions and turned a blind eye, or truly believed their flocks crusted in sanctified filth. Brother Cedric's silent complicity suggests the former. You scramble out, trembling violently. Drying with your tunic as unthinkable it had glued dirt back onto you. You stand naked and dripping, the wind flaying your skin. Goose flesh rises in waves. Desperate, you rub handfuls of dry, dead grass over your limbs. It scratches like 1,000 tiny heresies. Grass cloth, novices called Ita poor man's towel. Your skin reddens, streaked with green stains and lingering grit. Clean? Questionable. Cold? Absolutely theological. Suddenly, laughter echoes Shosh, guttural. Not monks. From beyond the abbey wall, villagers returning from, the staggering ox, tavern. Torchlight bobs closer. Panic. Flares. If caught, scandal. Flogging. Worse, excommunication for lewd exposure. You fumble for your scapular, tangling in frozen wool. The voices near the gate. You dive behind the compost heap-warm, reeking, humiliating sanctuary. Rotting turnips squelch beneath your bare feet. The villagers pass, arguing about dice and a missing pig. Their torchlight flickers over your hiding spot, illuminating a fat rat gnawing a cabbage core. It eyes you, unimpressed. You press deeper into the warmth of decay, shivering, grass-stained, and smelling faintly of lie and failure. When silence returns, you dress with numb fingers. The scapula clings, damp and icy, to your back. Walking back feels like a funeral procession. Every shadow holds Prior Anselm's disapproving glare. In the cloister, you pass the lavatorium, the stone basin for ritual hand-washing before meals. Moonlight glints on the stagnant water inside, green with algae. A single frozen fly floats on the surface. You dip your fingers, as required. The water feels warmer than the river. Hypocrisy has its comforts. Back in the dormitory, 30 monks snore in unison. You slide onto your straw pallet. Brother Finan on the next pallet rolls over. You smell Sharp, he murmurs sleepily. Like we wet stones. You stiffen, dreaming. You mumble. He sniffs again, then grunts. Dreamt I was a trout. He rolls back, leaving you staring at the vaulted ceiling. Dawn comes too soon. At prime, you kneel in the frigid chapel, knees aching on stone. Prior Anselm paces, his sermon a venomous hiss about purity of spirit over vanity of flesh. His own neck is ringed with grime, his fingernails black crescents. As the brothers chant psalms, you scratch discreetly beneath your scapular. Something bites your ribcage a flea, thriving in the sanctioned filth. You crush it. A tiny smear of blood stains your thumb. Later in the scriptorium, you copy psalms under Brother Illuminator's watchful eye. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Your quill hovers. Irony pools like ink. Outside, real snow drifts down, pure and fleeting. It'll melt by noon, churn to gray slush by sandaled feet. Cleanliness, like salvation, feels perpetually out of reach, a glittering promise on the far side of a frozen river. Brother Cedric shuffles past the window, his face still faintly streaked with last night's holy dirt. He catches your eye, doesn't smile, doesn't frown, just touches his forehead in a gesture that could mean anything. Blessing? Warning? You dip your quill, the flea bite on your ribs throbs. Whiter than snow? Not in this life. Maybe the next. If God overlooks the smell, the flea bite beneath your scapular throbs in time with the chanting of nonce, tiny, insistent drumbeat against your ribs. As the last amen fades, the abbey's true fragrance blooms. Stale incense, damp stone, and the ripe, sweet, sour bouquet of 30 unwashed monks packed into a sun-warmed cloister. Brother Finance shuffles past, trailing a scent like old cheese left in a damp boot. You discreetly pinch your nostrils. Sanctity, it seems, has a very particular odor. Outside the abbey walls, a different solution blooms literally. In the market square, a perfumer's stall glitters with glass vials and clay pots. Essence of Eden, cries a hawk-nosed vendor, waving a dripping rag under a merchant's nose. 2 drops and you'll smell like Gabriel's wing. The merchant inhales, swoons theatrically, and slaps down coins. Mainstream fact? As bathhouses vanished post-plague, the European perfume trade exploded be 1,400. Paris had over 100. Master perfumers crafting scents to mask the age of filth. You edge closer, curiosity battling monastic guilt. The perfumer, Master Gills, spots your habit. Ah, a seeker of celestial aromas. He thrusts a pomander at you, perforated silver ball stuffed with ambergris and cloves. Wear this, brother. Repels miasmas and mortal temptations. It reeks like a spice merchant's fever dream. Quirky tidbit? Some believed carrying rotten apples, purified ere their decay, absorbed corruption. You watch a lady tuck a browned, mushy fruit into her bodice. For the children's health, she confides, as a fly buzzes around her collar. Gilles lowers his voice. But for true power? He uncorks a tiny vial. The stench hits like a physical blow putrid, musky, with undertones of a backed-up privy. Civet musk. From the glands of a cat's fundament, he grins. 1 drop lasts a month. You recoil. Civet small, cat-like creatures were kept in cages so vile, collectors gagged while scraping their anal secretions. Yet nobles drenched themselves in this fecal perfume, believing it animal magnetism overcame human stink. Historians still argue whether perfumes prevented disease by balancing air or spread it by masking the warning stench of decay. Try it. Jill dabs the civet on your wrist. The odor blooms, a predatory growl wrapped in rotting roses. Your stomach churns. Powerful? Yes? He beams. The Duke's Chancellor bathes in it weekly. Bathing. The word feels illicit. You imagine a gouty old man wallowing in essence of cat anus. A joke? A tragedy? Both. Back at the Abbey, desperation mounts. Brother Hubert, the librarian, reeks of parchment mold and armpit. He beckons you to the herb garden. Prior's orders, he whispers, crushing lavender spikes into a mortar. We're making sanctified scent sachets. He winks. Church authorities publicly condemned perfume as vanity, but privately ordered discreet herbal blends for high-ranking clergy. Hubert stuffs muslin bags with lavender, rosemary, and subversively dried citrus peel. Smuggled from Sicily, he confides. Smells like heresy, eh? That night, in the drafty dormitory, you tie a sachet around your neck. Lavender ghosts your pillow. Brother Finance sniffs suspiciously. You smell like a brothel in Provence. Before you can protest, Prior Anselm's lantern slices the darkness. What is this stench? He thunders. 30 monks feign sleep. His lantern hovers over your cot. The sachet. You cram it under your straw mattress. Anselm's nose twitches like a rabbit's. Lavender vanity. He rips your blanket, a side revealing nothing. Finan farts loudly in his sleep. The prior retreats, muttering about Satan's perfumeries. The close call sparks innovation. Next morning, novices line up at the wash trough not for water, but for vinegar rubs. Approved by Saint Fiacre, claims Brother Cellarer, sloshing acrid liquid from a cask. Kills odors and demons. You soak a rag, scrubbing face and neck. The vinegar bites, stripping skin raw. Quirky bonus? Some added powdered mummy, ground Egyptian corpses, for ancient purity. You decline the dusty jar offered. Suit yourself, shrugs the cellarer. Cleopatra's own armpit recipe. Market day reveals perfume's dark underbelly. A beggar woman sobs over her coughing child. Sold us, lily of the valley, essence, she wails. Said it cured lung rot. The vial contains turpentine and rancid oil. Nearby, a dandy reeks of rose attar layered over unwashed linen. Like stuffing a corpse in a wedding bouquet, mutters a fishwife. Scholars debate whether the perfume boom-birthed Europe's first snake oil salesman or just monetized despair. The civet musk on your wrist won't fade. It haunts you through vespers, supper, even Compline's solemn prayers. Deliver us, O Lord, from eternal stench. You scratch your flea bite, now festering beneath perfume and piety. In the infirmary, old Brother Cuthbert lies dying. His bed reeks of myrrh and decay. They anointed him, whispers the infirmarian, to sweeten his passage. Cuthbert's breath rattles, sour as spoiled milk beneath the incense. Final irony, the prior himself isn't immune. You catch him lingering near the herb garden, surreptitiously rubbing rosemary sprigs on his wrists. His eyes meet yours, a flash of shame, quickly masked by fury. Idle hands, brother? Copy Proverbs on vanity, twice. You retreat to the scriptorium. Moonlight silvers your parchment. All perfumes are fleeting, you transcribe. Outside, the night breeze carries chimney smoke, river mud, and distant orange blossoms from a noble's garden. Cleanliness is a memory. Holiness is a performance. And perfume? The desperate alchemy of a world rotting in its own skin. You pocket a stolen rosemary sprig. Crushed between fingers, it releases a sharp, clean sigh. Tomorrow, the civet musk will still linger. But tonight, you bury your nose in your sleeve, inhaling green defiance. Small rebellions smell like hope. The rosemary's piney ghost still clings to your fingers as Prior Anselm's bony hand clamps your shoulder. Brother, he hisses, breath reeking of yesterday's onion soup, your vanity requires penance. Moonlight slices through the cloister, painting his smile thin and cruel. You'll assist the night soil men, a lesson in humility and stench. Before you protest, he shoves a wooden shovel into your handsets, handle sticky with something you pray is tree sap. The gong farmers. Nightmare made flesh. Mainstream fact? These medieval sewage workers operated exclusively after dark by law, hauling human waste from castle cesspits to avoid poisoning daylight air. You're now one of them. You're led to the castle's outer bailey, where shadows coil like living things. 3 figures loom near a yawning pit. Ragged Tom, Gristle-jawed Ned, and Silent Will. Their leather aprons glisten with unspeakable sludge under a flickering lantern. Fresh meat for the ship mines, cackles Ragged Tom, missing teeth making his grin a black gash. The air? Imagine a slaughterhouse rotting inside a sulfur spring. You gag. Breathe through your mouth, monk boy, advises Ned, handing you a vinegar-soaked rag. Tastes worse, but spares the nose. Quirky horror? Some believed cesspit vapors cause spontaneous human combustion. Seen a man burst into blue flames once, Tom nods solemnly. Tweren't the ale? Neither. You peer into the pit. Moonlight barely touches the bubbling black morass below. A rickety ladder descends into darkness thicker than sin. Down you go. Ned shoves you. The ladder groans. Ich squelches under your sandals. Halfway down, heat rises afoul. Moist breath carrying the eye-watering tang of ammonia and decay. Your lantern reveals the truth. Centuries of royal dinners, peasant gruel, and monastic modesty stewed into a viscous hellbrew. The walls weep slime. Welcome to the king's cellar. Tom hoots from above. Your shovel bites into the muck. It sucks back like a living thing. Mainstream reality? Gong farmers risked death daily not just from fumes, but collapsing pits, drowning in excrement, or well-contaminating leaks that spread typhoid. You heave a shovelful into a waiting barrel. The sludge oozes, glistening with undigested peas, rat bones, and the occasional silver button from some lord's discarded finery. Treasure hunt, grunts Will, his first words all night. He pockets the button. Scholars debate whether these men died young from toxicity or developed freakish immunity. Evidence? Guild records show some lived into their 60s stinking, coughing, but alive. The work is a grotesque ballet. Ned and Tom haul filled barrels up via pulley, rope straining. Will scrapes walls for night soil gold semi-fossilized waste sold as fertilizer. You focus on not vomiting. Every shovel stroke releases methane bubbles that pop with wet, gassy sighs. That's the devil's belches, Tom explains cheerfully. Light a spark, and woof! He mimes an explosion. Dark humor? Gong farmers joke their job had no commute issues. Workplace smells worse than home. Suddenly, your shovel strikes something solid. A leather-bound book, miraculously intact. You wipe slime off the cover. De contemplatione Dei? On God's contemplation, Ned snatches it. Kindling, he declares, tossing it into a barrel. Irony drowns here, unrescued. Disaster strikes at midnight. Ned's pulley rope snaps. A barrel plummets, exploding like a dung bomb below. Will vanishes under a tidal wave of waste. Will! Tom shrieks, scrambling down. You wade into the waist-deep filth, gagging. Your hands find cloth. You haul. Will emerges, sputtering, eyes wide with terror. Something bit me, he stammers. A rat paddles past, bold as a baron. Quirky terror. Workers swore giant cesspit eels grew in the sludge, biting men's ankles. Will's bite is likely a rusted nail-butt superstition trumps reason here. As dawn bleeds gray at the pit's rim, Prior Anselm appears. He holds a pomander to his nose, face twisted in disgust. Finished? He calls, voice muffled by cloves and silk. You climb out, dripping horrors. Anselm recoils. Do not approach the cloister until purified. His idea of purification? 3 days praying in the pigsty. God's creatures are less finicky, he sniffs. You stumble toward the river, shedding crusted layers of leather and wool. Townsfolk scatter from your path, crossing themselves. At the riverbank, you plunge in fully clothed. The current fights you, reluctant to touch what you've become. Filth swirls away in brown tendrils. A dead fish floats past, belly up. Poetic justice. Clean? Never again. As you drag yourself onto the bank, shivering, you spot a well nearby the castle's main water source. Its stone rim is stained dark where overflow from last night's barrels seeped into the earth. A scullery maid dips a bucket, humming. Tomorrow's drinking water. Today's penance. Historians still argue whether medieval people understood fecal contamination or blamed bad air for the plagues that followed. Watching that bucket rise, glistening innocently in the dawnlight, you know the truth. Ignorance smells like rose water and tastes like death. You peel off your tunic, wringing black fluid onto the grass. The rosemary sprig is still in your pocket, reduced to a slimy green smear. You crush it in your palm. No fragrance survives. Only the memory of the pit's hot, suffocating breath. Some lessons, it seems, are written in shit. The river's chill still clings to your bones like a second skin when you stumble into the village square and straight into chaos. A mob surges around Widow Hester's cottage, torches casting frenzied shadows. "Witch!" screams a fishmonger, brandishing a rusty sickle. "She washed her babe's fever away." Hester cowers in her doorway, clutching a damp, wailing infant. A bucket of murky water sits spilled at her feet. Mainstream terror? Post-plague? Many believe bathing invited. Demon's water wasn't cleansing, but a porous gateway for evil. You freeze, the memory of your own river plunged suddenly feeling like a death warrant. Water opens the soul to Satan's whispers, bellows Brother Oswin, the village priest, his face flushed beneath a louse-ridden cowl. He thrusts a wooden crucifix toward the bucket as if confronting a serpent. See how the babe cries? Demons fleeing its skin? Quirky twist. Some healers claimed hot water was safe at sealed pores while cold washes invited infernal chills. Hester sobs. But his fever broke. A rotten cabbage arcs through the air, splattering near her feet. You slip behind the alehouse, heart pounding. Your damp tunic feels like evidence. Through a knothole, you watch the village. Cunning woman. Old Mag hobble forward. Silence falls. Even Oswin steps back. Mag dips a gnarled finger into the spilled water, tastes it, and spits. "Not just water," she croaks. She added rowan berries. Against fairy theft. The crowd murmurs. Rowan was protection magic. Oswin seizes the angle. Pagan filth. She bathed the child in enchanted corruption. The mob surges. Hester screams as they drag her toward the ducking stool by the mill pond ironically. The village's only approved bath. Mainstream punishment? Suspected witches and habitual bathers were tested by immersion. Sink, you're innocent, but drowned. Float, you're guilty, then hanged. Lose hygiene. You notice the pond's scummy surface glitters with dead frogs. As Hester's head is thrust under, you flee into the woods. Moonlight dapples a hidden creek. You crouch to rinse your hands, then freeze. Is this water safe or crawling with invisible malice? Superstition whispers. See those ripples? Water sprites dragging children under. That gurgle? A drowned sinner's laugh. You spot carved charms nailed to an oak-twisted sticks and feathers warding against demon springs. Historians still argue whether these beliefs stemmed from genuine germ theory, intuition stagnant water did breed disease, or primal terror of the unseen. Suddenly, rustling, you dive behind ferns as two figures approach the creek, a young couple. The girl giggles, shedding her kirtle. "But what if the water spirits see us?" whispers her lover. "Then we'll be cursed with eternal desire," he laughs, pulling her into the shallows. They kiss, oblivious. You watch, torn. Their nakedness isn't sinful, it's tender, human. Then a twig snaps under your knee. They whirl. "Who's there?" The boy grabs a stone. You stumble backward, babbling, "I meant no harm, just checking for demons." The girl screams. You bolt, branches whipping your face. Behind you, their shouts blend into the night. "Peeping Tom! Satan's spy!" Exhausted, you collapse at a mossy crossroads. A crude shrine stands there in niche holding a chipped Virgin Mary statue. At her feet, offerings, withered flowers, a moldy crust, and a small water-filled clay bowl. Holy water? You lean closer. It's green with algae, a drowned fly floating atop, yet villagers leave coins beside it, believing it cures warts. Quirky logic? Some thought blessed, water reversed, water's inherent dangers. You dip a finger. It feels ordinary, cold, slightly slimy. Dawn finds you at the smithy, warming stiff hands by the forge. The smith's wife scrubs her toddler's face with a dry rag. Wash basins attract plague imps, she explains, rubbing until the child's cheeks glow red. The smith himself spits into the coals. His best use for water. Their teenage son, however, hides a damp cloth behind the anvil. You catch his eye. He flushes. Got soot in me eye, he mutters. Later, you see him sneak toward the woods, the cloth clutched like a guilty secret. At the market, fear curdles the air. A traveling physician in a beaked plague mask, last seen in Section 5. Hawk's anti-bath amulets lead discs engraved with coiled dragons. Worn near the heart, it seals your pores against pestilential vapors. He croaks through his incense-stuffed beak. Townsfolk swarm him. You notice the amulet's design matches the carvings on the demon spring oak, recycling terror. The real horror unfolds near the mill. Widow Hester survived the ducking barely. Now she lies feverish on a straw pallet, her babe dead. Brother Oswin performs last rites, sprinkling holy water on the tiny corpse. Cleansed in Christ, he intones. The irony chokes you. Water killed the child's fever, then killed the mother's reputation, and now holy water eases its passage to heaven. The cycle stinks of hypocrisy and fear. As twilight falls, you find yourself back at the cursed creek. The lovers are gone. Fireflies blink above the water like lost stars. You kneel, cupping a handful. It's clear, cold, alive. No demons, no sprites, just water. You splash your face. The shock is bracing, pure. For a heartbeat, superstition's chains loosen. Then a branch cracks. You leap up, heart hammering. Was it the plague doctor? Oswin? Just a badger? You don't wait. You crash through the undergrowth, back toward the village's safe, sanctioned stench. Cleanliness might not be next to godliness, but in this world it's perilously close to heresy. You pass the smithy. The teenager's damp cloth lies discarded in the mud, trampled by hooves. A single, clean patch of fabric gleams whitely in the gloom, a tiny flag of surrender. The trampled cloth lies forgotten in the mud as you stumble into a world transformed where gabled houses lean like gossiping ladies and the air thrums with lute strings and ambition. Tudor England. You've time-slipped past plagues and ducking stools into an age where cleanliness is staging a cautious comeback, if you're rich enough. Before you, a gilded carriage disgorges a woman swathed in emerald silk. Her perfume hits first a cloying avalanche of rose attar and ambergris, but beneath it, the faintest whisper of soap. Make way for Lady Isabel's bath hour, snaps a footman, clearing peasants with a swagger stick. Mainstream fact? Henry VIII's court revived bathing as conspicuous consumption, with rosewater soaks becoming the ultimate status symbol. You shrink back as her entourage sweeps past, trailing the scent of privilege and petals. You follow at a distance to a half-timbered townhouse where steam curls from an upper window. Peering through a diamond-pane window, you witness the ritual. Lady Isabel reclines in a copper tub big enough to float a swan, draped in nothing but pearls and arrogance. Attendants pour pitchers of rose-scented water over her shoulders while a lute player plucks a ballad about chaste Dian's springs. The bathwater itself is milky with crushed almonds and goat's milk. Softens the royal complexion, murmurs a maid, scrubbing her mistress's back with a sponge that probably cost more than your village's annual tithe. Quirky twist? Some Tudor nobles added powdered pearls to their baths, believing it imparted lunar purity. You squint. No pearls tonight, just petals drifting like drowned butterflies. Contrast bites hard. Down in the courtyard, the household scullery maid wrestles a bucket from a communal trough water greasy with scum from the tannery upstream. She plunges her chapped, red hands into the murk, scrubbing pots crusted with yesterday's peacock pie. Bathwaters for m'lady? She spits when you approach. We get this. She nods toward a wooden trough where laundry sloshes. Servants' smocks stewing with stable rags in water unchanged for days. A toddler splashes nearby, chasing a bloated rat carcass. Don't touch it, Billy, she yells. Too late. Billy scoops it up, giggling. The disconnect is staggering. Upstairs, Lady Isabel's bath is an opera of excess. Downstairs, clean water is a shared delusion. Historians still argue whether Tudor hygiene divides reflected practical scarcity or deliberate class theater. Evidence? Henry VIII installed marble bathing suites at Hampton Court, while London's poor drank from Fleet Ditchen open sewer nicknamed the King's Chocolate River. You watch Billy drop the rat back into the laundry trough. The scullery maid sighs, fishing it out with a stick. You slip into the bustling market where vanity and squalor collide. A vendor hawks Virgin's Blush rosewater guaranteed from Provence. It's dyed Thames water with crushed marigolds. A farmer's wife barters turnips for a sliver of Castile soap, whispering, "For the baby's rash." Nearby, a dandy preens before a polished steel mirror, dabbing civet musk behind ears already raw from over-scrubbing. Rosewater then, musk, he instructs his grubby page. Layering is key. His ruff is starched to knife, edge sharpness, but his neck beneath is gray with ingrained dirt. Performance over substance. The ultimate absurdity unfolds at the Gilded Fleece Inn. A sign advertises, Royal Bath Experience, 3d, curiosity wins. Inside, a panting landlord gestures to a curtained alcove. The very tub King Hal soaked in, well, a replica. You pay. Behind the curtain, a battered oak barrel smelling strongly of sour ale and regret. His Majesty's blend. The landlord dumps a bucket of lukewarm water clouded with dubious herbs and a single wilted rose. Soak like a Tudor! You hesitate. The water's surface ripples something small, and Leggy struggles beneath a petal. Extra protein, grins the landlord, vanishing. It's a farce, but you sink in. The water barely covers your hips. The rose scent battles the ghost of stale beer. Yet for 3 pennies, you're aristocracy. Until the curtain jerks open. A red-faced merchant glowers. Time's up. My turn. You scramble out, damp and ridiculous, as he plunges in, belly overflowing the barrel. Ah, regal, he sighs, tossing the drowned insect aside. Later, by the river, you witness Tudor ingenuity or desperation. A beggar woman heats stones in a fire, then rolls them into a muddy puddle. Sweat lodge, she declares, crouching over the steaming pit with her skirts tented. Good for the egg. Her grandson shivers nearby, wrapped in a sack. Quirky survival? Impoverished Londoners recreated baths by heating stones in privy pits, using rising waste vapors as curative steam. You catch a whiff it's unforgettable. Lady Isabel's rosewater suddenly seems like a distant, gilded dream. As dusk paints the Thames gold, you spot the skull. Scullery maid from earlier. She's at a forbidden stretch of riverbank, hidden by willows. With furtive glances, she strips to her shift and wades in. Her sigh of relief echoes. She scrubs her arms with sand, rinsing away a day's grease and servitude. For 5 stolen minutes, she's not a maid, she's a water nymph. Then Billy's wail shatters the peace. Mama! Rat came back? She trudges ashore, dripping and resigned. You pass Lady Isabel's house. Through the window, you see her enthroned before a mirror, anointing her face with unicorn tears, distilled vinegar, and egg white. An attendant empties her bathwater into the street gutter. It flows pink and fragrant toward the Fleet Ditch, where a thirsty dog laps at it before recoiling, sneezing petals. The lesson? Cleanliness. Like everything in Tudor England, is a luxury flaunted or a crime disguised. The rich bathe in roses, the poor drown in shared filth. And you? You're caught between, smelling faintly of ale, herbs, and borrowed privilege. As you walk away, a street urchin tugs your sleeve. Spare a penny for a bath, mister? You give him 2. He grins, revealing blackened teeth. Gonna soak like a king. He'll probably buy a meat pie instead. Wise child. The urchin's laughter fades behind you as a new scent cuts through the tavern ale and rosewater ghost rust, vinegar, and something metallic that prickles the back of your throat. Blood. You follow it down a narrow lane, past apothecary jars of leeches and a hanging sign creaking on iron hinges. Gideon Barber Surgeon. Shaves, extractions, humoral rebalancing. Beneath the words, a painted hand grips a lancet over a grinning skull. Your Tudor stroll just took a sharp, grisly turn. You push open the door. The shop hums with flies and low moans. Gideon himself looms over a sweating merchant strapped to a chair, one arm dangling into a wooden tub half filled with murky water. Nearly done, Master Blythe, Gideon chirps, tightening a leather tourniquet. Just a pint more to soothe that choleric rage. Mainstream fact? Barber surgeons were medieval multitaskers licensed to cut hair, pull teeth, and slice vein saw based on the theory that bloodletting drained excess humors causing disease. Gideon's tub isn't for bathing, it's a bleeding basin, and Master Blythe's crimson swirls in it like macabre wine. Next, Gideon barks, wringing a blood-slick lancet into the tub. You freeze. Wasn't this a shortcut to the docks? Too late. A beefy apprentice herds you toward a stool. Arms up, he grunts. Gideon eyes your flushed face. Ah, sanguine dominance. See the ruddiness? Blood's too hot and abundant. He taps your wrist. Pulse like a war drum. A pint should calm that rebellious spirit. Quirky ritual? Some barber surgeons timed bleedings to zodiac phases. Aquarius for aqueous humors. Scorpio for venomous vapors. Gideon consults a grimy astrolabe dangling from his belt. Moons in Pisces ideal for phlegmatic drainage. The tools gleam wickedly. Fleam's razor, sharp blades for veins, scarificators, spring, loaded horrors with multiple claws, and cupping glasses bulging like insect eyes. Gideon selects a fleam, spits on a whetstone, and hones it with shink-shink sounds. Relax, he soothes. Think of it as unblocking your inner streams. You glance at the tub. Flies skate on Blythe's discarded blood. The water beneath is pink-brown, thickened with yesterday's cures. The cut is startlingly cold, a sharp sting at your inner elbow. Blood wells, thick and dark. Gideon directs it into the tub with a copper funnel. Drip, drip, plop, fine avinta, he jokes. Fit for a phlebotomist's supper. You watch your life swirl into the soup of Blythe's rage and God knows how many others' maladies. Mainstream horror? Shared bleeding tubs spread disease like wildfire. One customer's syphilis became the next mystery fever. Gideon wipes his phlegm on his apron already stiff with dried Gorian reaches for a leech jar. For the tricky humors, he explains, leeches suck the stagnant evil. The leech is cold, rubbery, and relentless. It latches onto your wrist, swelling like a rotten grape. Spanish beauties, Gideon admires, suck deeper than French ones. You feel its pull a sickening rhythmic tug. Nearby, a farmer has cupping glasses suctioned to his back. Fire-heated air inside cools, creating vacuum boils that rise like purple eggs. Drawing black bile from the liver. Gideon announces. The farmer groans. Historians still argue whether bloodletting provided placebo relief by doing something or accelerated deaths by weakening already ill patients. Evidence? George Washington likely died from excessive bleeding for a sore throat. Dizziness washes over you. The room tilts. Colors blur. Gideon catches your lolling head. Ah, the humor's rebalancing. A good sign. He snaps his fingers. The apprentice sloshes a bucket of cold water over your face. You sputter, gasping. Invigorates, Gideon beams. The leech detaches, fat and glossy, plopping into the tub. Your blood mingles with the farmer's black bile and Blythe's collar, a single, unified sludge. Quirky aftercare? Gideon packs your wound with spider webs, nature's finest styptic, and offers a reviving tonic of wine, powdered mummy, and iron filings. Replaces lost vitality. You decline, swaying. Payment is extracted. 2 pennies and your lace collar. For bandages. As you stumble out, a woman rushes in clutching a squalling infant. The fever, Master Gideon, he's burning. Gideon reaches for his fleam. A wee dram of blood will cool the little furnace. Outside, sunlight stabs your eyes. You lean against a wall, pressing spiderwebs to your throbbing arm. Across the street, a bathhouse sign creaks. The old steam bag. Purifying vapors. Irony hangs thick. You sought cleanliness, but Gideon purified you by the pint. Down the lane, a butcher hoses down his block, blood swirling into the gutter. It mirrors the tub's contents exactly. You spot the scullery maid from Lady Isabel's house. She's scrubbing steps, her wrists raw from lye. She glances at your bandage, understanding flashing in her eyes. Barber's holiday? She mutters. You nod. She jerks her chin toward a puddle. Wash the sting out. Quick, afore he sees. You crouch, rinsing your arm. The water turns pink, then clear. The cut smarts, but the dizziness ebbs. As you walk, a ballad singer's voice carries from the square. Bleed the rose, its petals fall. You touch your collarless neck. Cleanliness isn't just baths or blood. It's a battleground fought with leeches, rosewater, and spiderwebs. And sometimes the only thing flowing freely is nonsense. In a very real, very red tide, the metallic tang of Gideon's shop still clings to your memory like rust when a new kind of heat envelops you. Not the damp herbal fog of Tudor bathhouses, but a fierce, dry radiance rolling off glowing stones. You've followed whispers north, beyond the timbered towns, to a windswept fjord where pines claw at a slate-gray sky. Before you, smoke curls from a low, turf-roofed hut nestled against a granite outcrop. Bad stofa. The word tastes like charcoal and snow melt. Mainstream fact? Across Scandinavia and the Baltic, communities clung to bathstones, rituals long after steam baths faded in plague-haunted Europe. Forget tubs. Here, cleansing was forged in fire and ice. You duck inside the hut. Instantly, dry heat slams into you, stealing your breath. The air shimmers above a central pit filled with fist-sized granite stones, white-hot from hours in a roaring wood fire. Sweat springs from your pores before you can blink. Around the pit's edge, figures sit on tiered wooden benches. Fishermen with salt-cracked hands, farmers smelling of earth and animals, their faces serene masks in the flickering gloom. Sit, murmurs an old woman, patting the bench beside her. Her eyes reflect the embers like polished flint. Let the stones speak. The ritual unfolds with silent precision. A burly man, bare-chested and gleaming, uses birch-tipped tongs to lift a searing stone from the pit. He carries it like a sacred offering to a depression in the earthen floor, then splashes it with a dipper of water. H is S. A volcanic plume of steam erupts thick and pure, carrying the sharp, clean scent of wet granite and birch sap. It rolls upward, engulfing the bathers in a wave of intense, purifying heat. You gasp, lungs burning, skin singing. Loib, whispers the old woman. The spirit breath. Quirky tidbit? Some believed specific stones held ancestral wisdom. Singing stones, those that cracked musically when quenched, were thought to offer prophecies in the steam's patterns. This isn't passive soaking, it's endurance. Sweat rivers down your spine, pooling at your waistband. The heat drills into muscle and bone, loosening knots forged by cold seas and hard labor. The old woman hands you a vihta, a bundle of fresh birch twigs bound with willow. Beat the winter out, she instructs. You tap it tentatively against your arm. The leaves release a burst of camphoraceous fragrance. Harder, she chuckles. You swat your shoulders, thighs, back. The light stinging sensation, combined with the intense heat, feels strangely invigorating, like being scoured by nature itself. Historians still argue whether the vihita stimulated circulation or simply redistributed dirt effectively. Evidence? Viking graves sometimes contain birch twigs, suggesting ritual continuity stretching back centuries. The heat deepens. Breathing becomes a conscious effort. Visions dance at the edge of perception. Phantom longships on steam seas, frost giants melting into mist. The old woman dips her vilta in a bucket of cold water infused with pine needles, then flicks icy droplets onto the hot stones. Pop! Hiss! Another scalding cloud engulfs you. It's agony and ecstasy fused. Mainstream contrast? While Southern Europeans feared water opening pores to miasma, Nordic cultures saw intense heat followed by cold as strengthening the body's defenses, sealing it against winter's bite. Enough, rasps the fire. Tender. Time for the plunge. You stumble out into the shocking, knife-sharp cold of the fjord's edge. Moonlight glints on obsidian water. Without hesitation, the bathers plunge in. Gasps, shouts, wild laughter echoing off the cliffs. You follow, the cold a physical blow that sears your lungs and stops your heart for a terrifying second. Then, clarity. Pure, electric, mind-scouring clarity. The world snaps into razor focus, the stars piercingly bright, the scent of pine sharp as broken glass. You float on your back, breath steaming, watching the aurora flicker green above the Badstofa's smoke hole. Cleansed, reborn, or just very, very awake. Back inside, wrapped in coarse wool blankets, you sip hot, bitter juniper tea. The shared silence is profound, companionable. No talk of humors or demons here. Just the crackle of the fire, the settling stones, the deep sigh of satisfied bodies. The old woman points to a niche in the wall holding smooth, water-worn pebbles. Offerings to Njord, she says softly, for safe voyages and strong saunas. Quirky survival? Coastal communities sometimes rinsed with urine after the cold plunge, believing its ammonia sealed the skin against salt and windburn. You decline the proffered bucket. Danger lurks, of course. Legends tell of fools staying too long in the loip, their lungs scalded by invisible steam, or diving into frozen lakes only to cramp and sink. You watch the fire tender bank the coals carefully. Respect is etched into his movements. This isn't indulgence, it's negotiation with elemental forces. Scholars debate whether these practices persisted because of Scandinavian isolation or a deeper cultural pragmatism untouched by Mediterranean miasma theories. Watching the bathers' calm, weathered faces, you suspect the latter. As dawn bleeds pink over the fjord, you prepare to leave. The old woman presses a smooth, warm stone into your palm, one cooled from the heart of the fire. For your journey's heat, she says. Its warmth is a tangible memory. Outside, the world feels different. Cleaner, sharper. The lingering scent of wood smoke and birch on your skin feels like armor against the grimy realities awaiting you southward. You crest a hill overlooking a nascent Christian settlement. A wooden church stands proud. Beside it, almost hidden, smoke curls from a small turf hut. A priest emerges, red-faced and sweating, followed by the yeasty smell of fermenting rye bread. Or is it steam? He spots you, guilt flashing across his face before hardening into disapproval. Heathen practices linger in dark corners, he calls, gesturing vaguely at your Badstofa, scented clothes. You clutch the warm stone in your pocket. Further south, the church's grip tightens. You pass a village where the Badstofa lies in charred ruins, breeding ground for pagan lust. A fresh-faced friar preaches to wary peasants, yet behind a crofter's barn, you see stones heating in a small fire pit. A child is whisked inside a makeshift shelter draped with hides. Defiance or necessity? Historians note that some cunning priests rebranded the ritual as St. Olaf's sweat, incorporating prayers and holy water splashes onto the stones. Faith, it seems, could be flexible when faced with a Nordic winter. Your stone has cooled by the time you reach the bustling, stinking confines of a Hanseatic trading town. The warm memory of the fjord feels like a dream. But as you push through crowds reeking of fish, unwashed wool, and cheap perfume, you touch the smooth granite in your pocket. Somewhere, fire still heats stones. Steam still rises. Winter is still beaten back, one searing, loipa, and icy plunge at a time. Cleanliness isn't always about removing dirt. Sometimes it's about forging resilience in the heart of the flame. The resilience forged in Nordic fire shrivels like wet parchment as you cross back into England. Here, the air hangs thick with the cloying sweetness of decay and unchecked ambition, the stench of the Renaissance, where humanism blooms alongside septic tanks. Your path leads not to a bathhouse or bad stofa, but to a building that smells like a butcher's fever dream. Oak tannin, stale herbs, and the unmistakable copper tang of blood. A sign swings, creaking, DR. Eusebius thorn. Medicinal baths, humoral equilibrium. Below it, smaller letters whisper the truth. Phlebotomy hydropathy. You've found the bleeding tubs. You push through a bead curtain sticky with something brown. The room swims in low light, thick with steam that reeks of pennyroyal and rust. 3 wooden tubs dominate the space, their water murky as stagnant ponds. In each, a pale figure floats half-submerged like a half-cooked pudding. Doctor. Thorny, a gaunt specter in a blood-splashed velvet robe circles them, wielding a lancet with the reverence of a priest holding a sacrament. Ah, a seeker of sanguine harmony, he rasps, spotting you. His eyes, magnified by thick-lensed spectacles, scan your face. Ruddiness. Fevered. Ruddiness. The blood cries for release. This isn't Gideon's quick bleed and go. This is immersion therapy, Tudor style. Patients soak in tepid water infused with calming herbs like vervain or henbane while their veins are opened. Mainstream madness? Some physicians believed water amplified bleeding's effects, diluting viscous humors and drawing them out faster. You watch Thorne approach the first tub. A merchant, eyes glazed, drifts in water tinted pink from his own arm. Master Blythe, Thorne chirps. Ready for your second pint? We must quench that choleric fire. Blythe moans, too weak to protest. His blood swirls lazily into the broth. Your tub awaits. Thorne gestures grandly to an empty vat. An apprenticea boy with haunted eye stirs a fresh batch of water, tossing in bruised comfrey leaves. Promotes wound healing, he mutters unconvincingly. Quirky twist? Some hydropathists added lodestone powder to the water, believing magnetic forces guided corrupted blood toward the incision. Thorne taps a jar of gray grit. For stubborn melancholics. You're herded behind a stained screen. Stripping feels like surrender. The water, when you sink in, is lukewarm and slimy with floating herb bits. It smells like a damp forest floor after something large has died. Thorne looms, lancet glinting. The brachial vein, he announces, fingers probing your inner elbow. A generous spigot for life successes. The cut is swift, deep. Blood pulses into the water, vivid crimson against the murk. It doesn't mix immediately, coils serpent-like before slowly diffusing. See? Thorne breathes reverently. The humors unspooling. Dizziness washes over you faster than in Gideon's chair. The water's warmth amplifies the lightheadedness. You slump against the tub's rough edge, watching your blood bloom around you like some grotesque aquatic flower. Thorne dips a silver bowl, collecting a sample. He holds it to a candle, peering. Cloudy! Phlegm intrudes upon the sanguine. We must deepen the drainage. He signals the apprentice. Leeches! For the femoral region! Panic cuts through the fog. No, the brachial suffices. Thorne tuts. Tut. Fear constricts the humors. Leeches applied here. He gestures towards your thigh beneath the water. Suck the blackest bile directly from the liver seat. The apprentice approaches, jar in hand. Inside, black slugs undulate. Historians still argue whether bleeding in, water increased infection risk tenfold, or merely created the illusion of a gentler purge. Judging by the greenish tinge to Blythe's incision upstream, you suspect the former. The leeches descend. You feel their cold, searching pressure through the water, then the sharp pinch as they latch onto your thigh. Their suck is a deep, unsettling pull. Thorn beams. Marvelous. Observe the synergy. Water softens the vessels. Leeches target the dregs. You close your eyes, nausea warring with terror. The herbshenbane, like little the edges, wrapping the horror in a hazy shroud. Visions flicker. The Nordic stones glowing white, hot, Lady Isabel's rose petals, Gideon's bloody basin. All paths, it seems, lead back to spilled vitality. A commotion erupts at Blythe's tub. He's slipped under, bubbles gurgling to the pink surface. Assist him. Thorn barks, annoyed. The apprentice holds Blythe's head up. He's unconscious, lips blue. Humors, overbalanced. Thorn diagnoses, probing Blythe's flaccid wrist. Reviving tonic. The apprentice pours a vial of acrid liquid vinegar and powdered stag's horn down Blythe's throat. He convulses, vomits blood and herbs into the tub. Thorn nods approvingly. Expulsion. Excellent. Your own leeches swell, drunk, and heavy. Thorn plucks them off with tongs, dropping them into bucket. They writhe, distended. Spanish stars, he admires. Greedy little healers. Your thigh throbs where they fed. The water around you is now a cloudy maroon. Weakness weighs your limbs like lead. Enough? You slur. Thorn consults a water clock dripping beside a chart of zodiacal veins. Pisces wanes, Scorpio ascends, one more lancet, for venomous vapors. He targets a vein in your foot, submerged and unseen. The cut is a distant sting. More blood clouds the water. Release is a blur. The apprentice holds you out, wrapping you in a rough blanket crusted with old bloodstains. Payment, Thorn, reminds you, already turning to a new arrivaler nervous scholar, clutching a treatise on aquatic phlebotomy's planetary alignments. You fumble coins onto a table sticky with substances you don't examine. Stumbling into the alley, cold air hits like a physical blow. You're shivering, lightheaded, reeking of herbs and iron. Two spots burn fiercely, your elbow and your thigh. The streets spin. You collapse against a wall near a public well. A woman draws water, glancing at your pallor. Thorns, she guesses, sympathy warring with disgust. You nod. She hands you her dipper. Rinse the wounds. Quick! You pour clean water over the cuts. It stings, washing away clots and filth. The clarity is momentary. Dizziness swamps you again. Down the lane, a familiar sight, Gideon's barber-surgeon sign. He's outside, smoking a pipe, watching Thorn's clients stagger away. Hydromancy for humors? He scoffs, blowing smoke. Fancy way to drown in your own swill. A quick pint in a clean bowl that's honest work. He gestures to his spotless-ish bleeding basin. Irony hangs thick, cleanliness defined by the container, not the contents. You limp away, the leech bites throbbing. Passing an apothecary, you see glass jars of sanguis draconis, dragon's blood, resin, actual advertised for staunching life's outflows. Too late. Vitality drips down your leg, soaking your stocking. At the river's edge, you collapse, plunging your bleeding arm into the icy current. The cold bites, numbing the pain, slowing the ooze. Fish nibble at the dissipating pink cloud. Above, a new constellation of smoke rises not from a bad stofa, but from a brick chimney on a grand house. Rumors whisper of an Italian architect inside, sketching water closets and copper pipes. Hope? Or just another pipe dream? You close your eyes, the river's chill leaching the lost warmth from Thorn's tainted tub. Cleansing, it seems, comes in many forms. Some scoured by fire, some drained by leeches. Some simply left to the indifferent mercy of flowing water. Tonight, you'll take the river. Bucket. They writhe, distended. Spanish stars, he admires. Greedy little healers. Your thigh throbs where they fed. The water around you is now a cloudy maroon. Weakness weighs your limbs like lead. Enough? You slur. Thorn consults a water clock dripping beside a chart of zodiacal veins. Pisces wanes, Scorpio ascends, one more lancet, for venomous vapors. He targets a vein in your foot, submerged and unseen. The cut is a distant sting. More blood clouds the water. Release is a blur. The apprentice holds you out, wrapping you in a rough blanket crusted with old bloodstains. Payment, Thorn, reminds you, already turning to a new arrivaler nervous scholar, clutching a treatise on aquatic phlebotomy's planetary alignments. You fumble coins onto a table sticky with substances you don't examine. Stumbling into the alley, Cold air hits like a physical blow. You're shivering, lightheaded, reeking of herbs and iron. Two spots burn fiercely, your elbow and your thigh. The streets spin. You collapse against a wall near a public well. A woman draws water, glancing at your pallor. Thorns, she guesses, sympathy warring with disgust. You nod. She hands you her dipper. Rinse the wounds. Quick. You pour clean water over the cuts. It stings, washing away clots and filth. The clarity is momentary. Dizziness swamps you again. Down the lane, a familiar sight, Gideon's barber surgeon sign. He's outside, smoking a pipe, watching Thorne's clients stagger away. Hydromancy for humors? He scoffs, blowing smoke. Fancy way to drown in your own swill. A quick pint in a clean bowl that's honest work. He gestures to his spotless-ish bleeding basin. Irony hangs thick, cleanliness defined by the container, not the contents. You limp away, the leech bites throbbing. Passing an apothecary, you see glass jars of sanguis draconis, dragon's blood, resin, actual advertised for staunching life's outflows. Too late. Vitality drips down your leg, soaking your stocking. At the river's edge, you collapse, plunging your bleeding arm into the icy current. The cold bites, numbing the pain, slowing the ooze. Fish nibble at the dissipating pink cloud. Above, a new constellation of smoke rises not from a bad stofa, but from a brick chimney on a grand house. Rumors whisper of an Italian architect inside sketching water closets and copper pipes. Hope? Or just another pipe dream? You close your eyes, the river's chill leaching the lost warmth from Thorne's tainted tub. Cleansing, it seems, comes in many forms. Some scoured by fire, some drained by leeches. Some simply left to the indifferent mercy of flowing water. Tonight, you'll take the river, forest, where smoke rises from a Powhatan sweat lodge unseen. Spring thaw reveals the final obscenity. A supply ship arrives from London. Among crates of tools and seed, 10 oak barrels labeled Fine English Perukes, Latest Fashions. Excited colonists rip them open. Wigs cascade out powdered white, pristine, and already faintly moving. Fresh stock, cheers the governor, placing one atop his scabbed head. Lice explore his collar like pioneers claiming new territory. You abandon your indenture that night, vanishing into the woods. Behind you, Jamestown glows with feverish hearths and scratching shadows. Ahead, the rustle of leaves, the scent of pine. Near a creek, you find a discarded Powhatan scrapera, curved deer bone. You shave your head ruthlessly, feeling lice fall like bitter rain. The cold water on your bare scalp is a baptism. Freedom, it seems, begins with letting go of vanity's infested crown. The Powhatan Creek's chill is a fading memory as centuries blur cobblestones morph into asphalt. Forest shadows retreat beneath gaslight, and the rhythmic clack-clack of carriage wheels gives way to the shriek of steam whistles. You stand on Blackfriars Bridge, 1858, London. The air, a physical assault, rotting meat, chemical tang, and the overwhelming sweetness of decay, the great stink. Below, the Thames oozes like an open wound, thick with sewage, slaughterhouse offal, and the waste of 3 million souls. A woman faints on the bridge, lace handkerchief pressed to her nose. Miasmus, cries a hawker selling vinegar-soaked face masks. Protect your humors. Mainstream fact? This putrid crisis birthed Joseph Bazalgette's revolutionary sewer system owned 1,300 miles of brick tunnels that reshaped London and buried medieval water terror under Victorian efficiency. You follow the stench to Parliament. Inside, politicians debate handkerchiefs pressed to faces. Gentlemen, the very effluvia of hell laps at our windows. Thunders MP Lord Ashley. Outside, laborer, dig. Clang. Your shovel strikes not soil, but Roman brickwork lost hypocaust from Section 2, crushed under progress. Bazalgette's men blast through it, unimpressed. Old rubbish, grunts the foreman. History is layered like grime, each era burying the last. Victorian engineering rises a cathedral of sanitation. You descend into the new sewer, a brick archway vast as a train tunnel. Damp air carries a chill, clean emptiness. Distantly, water rushes away from wells toward treatment marshes. Quirky victory? The system used 318 million bricks and was designed to handle maximal fecal output based on bread consumption studies. One man, one loaf, one flush. Jokes an engineer, scribbling calculations. The scale is humbling. Medieval cesspits could hold a cartload. This labyrinth swallows cities. Above ground, the revolution spreads. Cast iron pipes snake into townhouses. You witness a miracle in Mayfair. A maid turns a brass tap. Clean water gushes into a porcelain basin. No well dragging. No vinegar rinses. A child squeals, splashing. Her grandmother watches, wary. Unnatural, she mutters. Water should be earned. Trauma lingers generations, bred on well. Poisoning fears flinch at effortless flow. Public baths bloom like steel and tile flowers. At Lambeth Wash House, you pay a penny. Tiled corridors gleam. Attendants in starched whites hand you soap and a towel. No leeches, no lurking demons, just rows of spotless cubicles with running hot and cold. You step under a shower head drain made obedient. It's a Nordic loip tamed by pipes, a Moorish hammam democratized. Mainstream redemption? Bathhouses became community hubs where the working poor scrubbed factory soot away, cutting typhus and cholera rates by half. But old ghosts stir. A pamphleteer waves hydrophobia, leaflets. Bathing thins the blood, invites spinal decline. Nearby, a shop sells electromagnetic bath belts, copper coils to fortify aura against plumbing's evils. Quirky resistance? Some Victorians installed dummy taps over hidden sponge bowls, performing washing pantomimes to appease guests while avoiding dangerous immersion. The grandest irony unfolds in a Brixton bathroom. A mustachioed gentleman soaks in a clawfoot tub reading The Times. His wig rests on a stand-synthetic, lice-free horsehair. On the sink, a cake of Pierre's transparent soap, its amber clarity a rebuke to medieval Sappho. He hums, pouring lavender salts into steaming water. Through the wall, faintly, you hear his maid singing as she boils his underwear. Sterilization's new creed: kill what you cannot see. Scholars still argue whether sanitation caused the mortality drop or merely rode coattails of vaccines and nutrition. Evidence? London's deaths halved before Suez finished, but Bazalgette's tunnels ended centuries of well-poisoning terror. The debate simmers like a forgotten tea kettle. You exit into a gaslit square. A new sound fills the night, the gush of a hydrant flushing streets. Boys dance in the spray, shrieking. An old woman crosses herself. Waist full, she clucks, but her eyes linger not in fear, but wonder. The medieval world is buried under 6 feet of brick and piping, yet its echoes remain. In germophobia masquerading as morality, in the luxury of a rose-scented bath that would have doomed Lady Isabel's soul. Progress isn't a straight line. It's a labyrinth, flushing its own refuse toward some distant, hopeful sea. You touch a cast-iron pipe humming faintly beneath the pavement, the artery of a new age. The Thames far below flows cleaner but not clean. Some stains, it seems, are eternal. The hum of pipes fades now, replaced by the soft rhythm of your own breath. That long journey from candlelit bathhouses to steam-shrouded bad stofas, from mercury salves to porcelain tub settles like silt in memory. You felt the scrape of sand on linen, the terror of a barber's fleam, the shocking clarity of a Nordic plunge. Centuries of grime and grace swirl down history's drain, leaving only the quiet certainty of this moment. Outside your window, the modern world sleeps. Distant streetlights blur like fallen stars. That reassuring rush in the walls? Water, obedient and invisible a miracle medieval minds could scarcely fathom. No miasmas lurk here. No demons ride the steam. Just peace heavy as a woolen cloak. So let the last images dissolve. The rose petal baths, the leech jars, the shovel scrape of gong farmers in the dark. They've earned their rest. And you've earned this stillness, this clean, unburdened drift towards sleep. Feel the cool sheets, the pillow's gentle yield. The past is scrubbed and put away. Tomorrow's world will wait, bright with taps that flow and warmth on demand. But tonight? Tonight belongs to silence and to dreams that rise like vapor from a long-forgotten bath.